everyone, Adam here, So Is Your Podcast. Got another cool interview for you today. I got to sit down with David and Drew. They work on an IDW book called Canto. Of course, the cat goes in the way as soon as I hit record. Canto is a fantasy series, a really original kind of thing. They talk about the inspirations in it, so I don't want to give that away. It's a very, very cool interview. We actually covered New York Comic Con 2019 panel of IDW's upcoming releases, and Canto, the second series, was involved there. And now they have the third coming out. They have some offshoot stories. It's a really cool, growing epic. And even cooler than all that, they're making an animated Canto. Dave and Drew were really excited about it. It was a really fun interview. It was cool to get into their creative process and into how this really unique fantasy series not only came to be, but how it continues. You're definitely going to enjoy this one. All right. Hey, everybody. Adam here. So Is Your Podcast. I'm sitting down with David and Drew. They're working on a fantasy comic series called Canto for IDW. How you guys doing?
Oh, man. I just totally missed my mark. Totally missed the mark.
Nice.
Doing well. How are you, Adam?
Doing good. Thanks for coming on. I'm really looking forward to this.
Sure.
I actually first heard about Canto in 2019 at New York Comic Con, I think is when you guys announced Chapter 2 or the second adventure.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
I'm sure it's a blur at this point.
I was going to say, after 14 months or whatever, time has no meaning.
I genuinely have a hard time remembering 2020. Like, I keep having to check the date and be like, wait, that's right, it's 21.
Is it a month ago or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
But now it looks like you have, I don't know if it's Chapter 3, because you have like your main Canto series, but then also some like one-shots and like offshoot stories.
Yeah, so we had the original Canto arc, which was 6 issues, started in June of 2019 and wrapped up, I think, in January of December 2019. Then we had the one-shot, which we like to call kind of a side quest. So it was Canto and the Clockwork Fairies. And then we went back into the main story for Canto 2, which started coming out right in August, right in the middle of 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. Wrapped that, and then we launched another side quest that we were fortunate enough to be able to expand into 3 issues instead of 1, with our guest artist Sebastian Perez. Perez, I'm not sure. Sorry, Sebastian, we love you. So 3 issues there, and then we're just launching in July. So now it's actually next month. Canto 3, which is another 6-issue main arc. So it's kind of our pattern is, these main stories and then these one-offs to kind of fill out the world. There's some connection to the main stories, but it's really kind of their standalone. And we brought in Sebastian most recently, so Drew could fight against the tide and try to get some of Canto 3 done in advance. How's that going, Drew?
No, it's going great.
I don't mean to laugh because but we'll just break down and cry if we don't.
So one or the other.
It's a crunch.
Was
Drew
the
can talk about that.
Sorry, go ahead, Drew.
No, I have anything.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if the plan from the beginning was, here's our story, let's do an offshoot, here's a story, or were you just like, we have this idea for a story, let's see how it's received?
The one-shots were kind of happy accidents. I don't remember how we got to doing Clockwork Fairies. I think, if I remember correctly, Clockwork Fairies originally was meant to be part of Volume 2 in some way. And I think there was an issue with actually making it fit within the larger story, and it was creating problems. But we wanted to keep it around, and what ended up making more sense was that it was put into its own little story, and we went to IDW with it, and they were on board with that, and it freed up whatever problems we were having with it in Volume 2. And it's just kind of worked out that way now that we're able to tell these side stories in between and kind of give everybody a palate cleanser before we dive into the main story of whatever the volume is.
Yeah, I mean, it's it all runs together, and I think I can't even remember at this point what month Clockwork Fairies came out. I think it was supposed to come out like April of 2020, and because of everything, we pushed it back. And then they told us, "Oh, we're going to do it," and we did it in July, which allowed us to get this fantastic cover for a San Diego Comic-Con online variant, which seemed to be really popular. Yeah, I think once we started seeing the success of Canto in the first arc, I know in my mind I was like, well, what else can we do?
Yeah.
And bridging the gap between Canto 1 and Canto 2 was this great little one-issue story that I think was really cool, and it wrapped itself up in a nice little package, so you didn't really have to know a whole lot about Canto. I think that's what we're seeing with Canto and the City of Giants, which is this short. It's very self-contained. You're rewarded as a reader of Canto because there's references to characters from prior story arcs. But if you don't know it, it's just kind of a fun fantasy adventure. I think it's the funniest, the most comedy we've put into Canto, and I think it served it really well. So people seem to be digging it. So I don't know if we'll do another one. It'll be interesting to see between this arc, Canto 3, and Canto 4, which is planned for 2022, if we can fit in some sort of side story. The momentum in the story is picking up, so it may not make sense story-wise to plop something right in the middle of it, but you never know. The readers keep buying copies. We'll keep making them.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks, everybody.
Where do you remember where you first had the idea for Canto? Because it's very unique, very imaginative, and you do some really cool world building with it.
Yeah, I created the character design and the story and everything, and Drew he just does what I tell him. No, I'm totally kidding. There's a totally different origin story to this. Drew came up with the character concept and the first seeds of the story. That eventually evolved into what we do now. You can tell him about it, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, it started as a character sketch, just to kind of do my own, to see if I could even do something that was cutesy at the time, and that would have more mainstream appeal. And then I did it. I had a basic story of what I wanted to do. I knew that it was Dante's Inferno meets Wizard of Oz. And then it just kind of got thrown into a drawer because I had other stuff I was working on at the time. David eventually approached me about doing another project, and I wasn't available to do it. But when my schedule freed up, I swung back around to him, and I sent him the original concept sketch and the idea. And he knew right away he wanted to be a part of it. And it turns out he's the world's biggest Wizard of Oz nerd you'll ever find.
Look at this character. I mean, it's a little different from his design now, but I hit my inbox, and within half a second, it's like, I don't know who this character is. I don't know what his story is, but we are definitely telling it. I just saw so much potential there. And Drew sent me over his idea for the story, and I was like, okay, now here's the story. No, we took a lot of inspiration from Dante's Inferno, where Drew sort of drew his inspiration from Wizard of Oz, which I'm a huge fan of. Yeah. Mashed it all together, and somehow Canto popped out.
It's really cool. I like hearing the origin, because I was getting a lot of Dark Tower vibes from it, where you have the one overall quest and then these side like distractions, but it's not just a linear path for your hero. And you have this established world that's familiar, but not. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, you can't see it on camera, but over here is an entire floor-to-ceiling shelf filled with all of my Stephen King books, including an entire shelf devoted to nothing but Dark Tower, including all of the Marvel Dark Tower series that they adapted in the omnibus and everything. So I'm a kind of a Stephen King fan, like nut, Stephen King nut. So it's very much in that vein of Roland's quest to sort of save the world and all of these things that he encounters in the the Dark Tower, the mid-world multiverse situation.
Yeah.
So
And
I don't think
you
Canto is going to dimension hop, but if we can get our TMNT crossover, he's definitely going to find himself in New York in some way.
Did you guys work on that book too, or just because it's in the same kind of family?
We have not, but if anybody's listening, yes, we will work on it. We're just fans.
Yeah, cool. And also, along with all the new Canto books coming out, you have an animated feature in the works. That's got to be thrilling.
Yeah.
Okay.
that one's still kind of hard to process.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Westbrook Studios has brought it on to make it into an animated feature, and they were as excited about the story as we were. They understood what we were going for and the themes behind it, and the kind of movie we wanted to make out of it. And working together with them has been amazing, because they also bring a different perspective, and they have different thoughts and ideas, and having that as we sort of develop it together. We're very fortunate. Drew and I are executive producing the movie along with them, and I get to write the screenplay. So we know that the integrity of the story is going to be maintained in the adaptation.
Yeah.
So from there, putting this whole team together, including, we're going to get a fantastic director involved, knock on wood, and find a home for it that will be, as excited as supported of it as Westbrook has been. So far, so good. I'm really excited about where we've gone at this point, and where we see that it could go, the heights it could hit. Should be pretty spectacular.
It's exciting because Westbrook really is like an actual partner for us in this, and they've demonstrated kind of over and over again their commitment to not only the success of the movie, but also for the character, and in supporting me and David in our roles here, because we're kind of stepping into a whole new playing field when it comes to this, but they've been amazing from the get-go.
That's really good to hear, because whenever you hear there's an adaptation of something you like coming, you're always excited, but then apprehensive, because it's like, is it going to be the thing that I originally liked? Mm-hmm. But since you're both still very much on board, you can kind of protect it.
And that's honestly, Adam, I'm not sure that Drew and I would have pursued this kind of opportunity unless we were able to have some oversight, some say in how it's going to take its next evolution in Canto's sort of life.
Yeah,
we care. Probably comes through, but Drew and I care about this story so much. We care about this character. We love this world. We love what we've created. This was something we were going to do. Whether or not IDW was going to publish it, we were still going to put it out there. So this is something that we've, is very close to us for a very long time, and it will continue to be. So we only want to see it grow its audience, in a new format that's true to the original vision, but also an evolution of what it could be.
I think that's the kind of mentality that why comics resonate with people so strongly is it's definitely a labor of love. It's such an intensive process for anyone who has never attempted it. I'm sure you guys can back that up. So you wouldn't be sticking with it if you didn't love the story and love the character.
Yeah. I mean, Canto is one of those things that it appears deceptively simple at times, where some people will point at it and go, it's an all ages book, or it's a fantasy book, or Canto's a simple design. Our experience with it has been that, one, Canto is far from a simple design, as many of the artists we have brought in can attest to it. But also that, it appears simple because we've worked very hard to make it that way, because that's the legwork behind the scenes to make it all flow and appear to be that way. So that's really our big thing, is that we protect not only the integrity of the comic, but that whatever we do with this film adaptation, that we bring that love into it and that mindset into it of, this may appear simple, but there's a lot of stuff going on that not only elevates what people have loved about the book, but brings in, makes it a whole new experience for them with the movie.
That's exciting, being able to dive into a new medium.
No, for sure.
Yeah, it's daunting and exciting all at once.
I don't know if this is asking too much, so feel free to just say you can't go that far in. Is this going to be a new Canto adventure, or is it a full-on adaptation of like maybe his first adventure?
Well, I can tell you that it's going to be an adaptation. It's an adaptation of this first story arc. We're not creating a new story. It's going to be a feature that's going to be some version of this, and we have specific ideas about how this can appear.
Yeah.
These 6 issues can translate into a full length feature. Those are things that are kind of a behind the scenes type thing. But it's going to be, readers, the fans of Canto can rest assured that it's going to be the story that they know and love, perhaps a new version of it.
Yeah, it is not a 1-for-1 recreation, but it certainly is honoring what came before it.
Yeah, and we're not going to go back and be like, this is the origin story that's in a movie or anything like that. It's this story in some form.
Very cool. It's really exciting. I'm really happy for you guys.
We have 3 prequels for that.
Yeah, we have an ongoing plan that's going to be 50 issues. No, I'm just kidding. That would be nice. Everybody buy your copies of Canto, because I would love to do that.
Do you mind if we get it a little bit into the like kind of the nitty gritty of your process on actually making and putting the books out?
Sure.
So it probably starts with the script. So David, you're probably kind of up first, or do you guys kind of do like a writer's room thing where you spitball an outline? And
I do all the work, and then I just tell him to type it up.
Yeah, kind of like how I created the whole thing on my own. No, I write the scripts. I'll do an outline for the arc, just like single paragraphs or a couple paragraphs per issue. And once we're good with that, I'll write the scripts for each issue, and then I'll send them to Drew for notes or anything, thoughts. A lot of times it's the notes that we exchange have to do with characters and design and putting characters in, and some ideas. Like there's issue 2 that we're just finishing up for Canto 3. There's a particular character in there that I didn't necessarily plan. I had a vague sense of what I wanted to have in there. And then Drew really pinpointed it for me, and I'm like, yes, let's do that. So it's kind of a back and forth in that way, and Drew will get the scripts. Our editor, David Marriott at IDW, will review the scripts and give his thumbs up, and then Drew will disappear for weeks at a time, except to message me. How dare you? How dare you write
in 30 hours to draw?
Yeah. So then Drew disappears and he works his magic. I'm not 100% sure how it all works, but I get beautiful pages on the other side, and that's all. That makes me happy. You can talk about that, Drew. What do you do for those 30 hours?
I get the Keebler elves to get to work.
Yeah. A lot of little hands can draw.
Yeah, a lot of little hands. Little hands and miniature whips.
It kind of defeats the purpose of Canto as a story.
Yeah, so once David gets me the script, usually from the outlines, we'll do concept work or as much as we can before we have to actually start working, just so I'm not having to design as we're drawing books, which is its own headache. But once I get the script, it's I'll go through it. I'll make sure everything makes sense. Usually I'll make notes within the script for David, which are more visual cues. So, he always gives me a really solid touchstone to come back to, and then I'll work out of that. And if something goes too far from what the original intent of it was, or if something, is messing with something that might be coming further down the road, he'll let me know. And otherwise, I kind of just go off. I do thumbnails, and then I just kind of work out of the thumbnails.
Yeah, and as far as the scripts go, I think sometimes they're. I don't try to overdo it because I know Drew is not going to listen to me, but also, I say that tongue in cheek. Of course, he listens to me. Everybody out there who's listening to this podcast right now, but I don't want to get too bogged down in details because I know I don't want to restrict Drew's creative process. And if he has questions, he will come to me. I don't understand. I don't get exactly what you're looking for here, but most of the time it's like this happens, and I'll do 2 or 3 sentences. But I want Drew to. I mean, he's the expert for art, and why I always say I just get out of the way for the creative team. So I'll give him the guidance. So what I think, what I want to, I envision on the page, and then he will make that happen in the way that he sees is best for that. And that's the way we've done it. And I think it works really well.
Do those kind of like the creative back and forth where you kind of hand over the reins and then check with each other, does that ever lead to maybe not major story rewrites, but, oh, I love what you did here, maybe we could go in this direction or emphasize this other thing more?
I would say a little bit, not so much from David to me, but probably from me to David more.
And going forward, I think it affects us going forward. Like there are things that will pop up that we never even thought of. It's like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's keep mining that for the story going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we've had basically writer room chats from time to time when it comes to major plot development. If there are ideas that if one of us isn't crazy about something, we'll kind of hash it out and let the other one make their case, and then take it from there. And I mean, that's resulted in some really good story moments for us. But as far as with the art, it's really, David will make adjustments usually in the script if there need to be with the art, if I've changed something. And there are panels that get added in from time to time from the script, but it's really to kind of ensure that visually everything lines up with what the script was trying to say.
Yeah, we'll get the message across, and sometimes I get the pages back and I look, and it's close to the script, but I'll go back. I always do in the process. Once I get the inks and colors for every page, I will go back and I will do a whole pass on the script for lettering, because oftentimes you have to go back. I have to go and adjust, move dialogue from different panels to other panels, cut things, add things. There was a sequence in City of Giants, the most recently that I worked on with Sebastian, and I sort of redid a lot of the dialogue on the page to match the layout of the page, which was wonderful, better than I think the script was. And then going back and redoing it, I think made the whole thing just better than what it started out to be. I don't often encourage artists to just sort of stray away from the script on the page. I don't encourage that necessarily, but sometimes when it happens, the end product is better than the what we started out with.
I also make, when David gives me the script, he'll put in there sometimes what he thinks the largest panel should be. I will sometimes adjust that because just to fit a page layout, or I'll feel like something else is maybe the more important moment on the page unless there's specific notes. And I will actively mark down this piece of dialogue should be moved into this panel. But that again, that's not something that I would encourage artists to just go and do that to people's script. Especially especially if you're work for hire.
Yeah, he knows when I see that stuff. I'm like, I don't even remember what I wrote in the script, honestly. And so when I see the page, I'm like, oh, this is gorgeous. I love this. And I go back to the script and I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to be adjusting these things. But it's fine. I mean, it's fine if the art tells the story that you intend to tell. Drew and I have such a close working relationship that it works fine here. Like Drew said, if you're drawing a work for hire project, you better
don't mess around.
Stick to
what
the
you
script.
were hired to do.
Yeah, stick to the script. Or if you have questions about it, you think something's not working, you better talk to your editor about that before just blowing the doors off and doing something else.
I'd have to imagine the maybe bending the rules a little bit, and those kind of creative choices became easier the more you guys work together.
Yeah,
but it's still horrible.
Yeah.
I think Drew in particular, you hit a groove after this first arc.
Yeah.
And Drew, it looks like you do everything traditional media.
Mixed. It's kind of time dependent and complexity dependent. So the general process is thumbnails are traditional. They get scanned in, blown up, and then pencils are all done digitally, pencils and layouts. And then time dependent is inks. So, if I have particular pages that I know are going to be big story moments or something that for sure will sell, I'll do it traditionally. But if we're kind of under the gun or something is complex to a level that is going to require breaking it down into layers, it'll be inked digitally. And I've gotten good enough over the last couple of months that I think it gets harder to tell the difference between the two, at least with my style.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear that you do both, because having read it and then I was kind of flipping through again just to refresh for this conversation, I couldn't see a difference. So
yeah, I mean,
awesome.
There's definitely more digital than there is traditional, so it doesn't jump out too much, I think, but it's kind of a situation dependent.
I think it's a great approach if you have the time to do it, because I'm working on a new series and the artist does all digital, so I don't have the opportunity to have original art from this series, and so Drew very strategically chooses pages that are gorgeous pages that we think will sell on the original art market, and I think that's a great way to approach it, because I have my beloved original pages from the first arc, and I'm just so happy to have them.
That's an interesting aspect that I didn't think of right away is that original art market, because it's not just the final book that you're putting in people's hands. There's a whole world around that even.
That is a huge secondary market for a lot of artists. And especially if you're lucky enough to have a book that people care about and want to invest into the artwork, then it's in your best interest to take advantage of that as much as you can, because it is not guaranteed to last forever.
I mean, and there's other considerations. Even if your series isn't a huge hit right out of the gate, you never know if you get a TV adaptation or you get a movie or whatever, something happens, you have all that art that's really a supplement to your salary as an artist.
It's the age of content wars. Everything is something.
That's very true. Yeah, don't throw anything away.
Yep.
How many passes, and it probably changes from character to character, but when you do your initial concept art, like you said, Canto is pretty close to the same, but a few differences from your original inspiration sketch. Is it the same for like his kind of side players as allies?
Yeah, Canto was a fairly quick design to finalize. It only went through, I think, 2 or 3 rounds of design between us. But the Malarex took way longer for us to actually figure out. That was months, I think, of work. He originally was smaller than Canto, and eventually,
there's a good page for him.
Yeah,
right there.
Eventually, I don't remember how we got there, but I've got the sketchbook with it, and it's like watching an actual evolution chart because you see it get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden we just landed on this mix between a bear, a gorilla, and a jaguar. So somehow
nobody can draw it. Nobody can draw it.
No, everyone hates it.
So he makes an appearance in City of Giants with Sebastian, and Sebastian's funny. We have a really good working relationship. And one day he emailed me and he read the last script, and it was only 2 panels with the Malarex in it. He said, "Thank you for not putting in more Malarex." I said, "I hear you, buddy. I know how hard it is to draw. You did a great job with it, but if you had to do 2 pages of the Malarex, I think we would have gotten a boycott."
It's one of those things that like it makes, if you ask me to break it down for you, I can break it down and I can send you photo reference of how he's supposed to move, how he's supposed to run, if he's bent over eating, if he's standing up, if he's on all fours. It all makes sense in my head, but I've told people he's a mix between a gorilla and a jaguar, and they're like, I don't get how this is meant to work. What the hell is this?
That's as long as you can replicate it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a skeletal structure and a muscular structure in my head for him, so it makes sense to me.
That's awesome. I love that the insight on the character design there, because a gorilla and a jaguar don't mix, but you made it work. It's also interesting that he was going to be smaller than Canto, because Canto is tiny in his own world. He
was meant to be Toto when this started out, and then it evolved into it evolved more into a Calvin and Hobbes relationship.
That's perfect. Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying.
Especially as he got bigger, it just took the nature of their relationship in that direction.
How is it outlining the panels or doing the panels where Canto's so small and then he goes into like a city of giants or even average sized human like people?
Hard. You spend a lot of time looking through Akira books and Mobius books to understand scale. We have a pretty close idea. Like we know Canto's about 3 feet tall. So once you know that, you just work everything else around that. And like to that end, David just kind of like, if we go into a city, he'll do descriptions for the city and what's important for it to be there, and then just turns me loose on doing like the dressing for the rest of it. So it's just, from my end, it's important that you have a lot of things that are significantly taller than Canto just to make him feel like he's small in the big city.
I mean, that's part of the whole story, and the charm of Canto is such a tiny little knight who's just fighting his way through this great big world.
Yeah.
We play with size all the time. So City of Giants, it's funny that 2 side quests I keep talking about are Clockwork Fairies and City of Giants. And in the one you have Canto, who's the huge creature compared to these tiny little fairies. And then in this City of Giants, he's the tiny creature among these huge, this huge race of giants. But, and he's never deterred. No matter how big his adversary, he's always right there. And I think that's what people love about it, is just he's never backing down no matter what.
admittedly, he's very hard to draw when you have a character that's 3 feet tall and characters that are 60 feet tall. It can get a little complicated in terms of fitting everybody into the panels.
Yeah, that's what is kind of where my mind went, was you have 3 different heights in Canto's party, then you have these other people that he's facing that are even bigger. It's interesting.
It basically is, you have to take it back to the basics of knowing your perspective grids and how to manipulate and how to cheat in certain spots.
Yeah, and Drew has this great technique of pulling the camera down and having this, this up angle where there's really something prominent in the foreground, and you see a lot that's going on in the distance, the background. And that plays with perspective so much. So you might see Canto's leg framing the panel, and there's this huge city in front of him. I have an example of it right here. There's this huge city in front of him, but it's like Canto is so large, even though he's tiny, that he's going to be able to handle this. It's not a big deal, right? So here's this double page spread. You see how big Canto is? It's this huge daunting city in front of him, but he's just about the same size. So we play with size through perspective to shift that balance of him being fearful about the world because he's so tiny in it, and sort of feeling like he has some control over it despite his small size.
Yeah.
It's really insightful for the story, because as the character in the story beats go, that's exactly what you're after. But for Drew, it's got to be a mental workout to get everything to fall in line. And
it is and it isn't, because that's basically what I'm here to do. Like the draftsmanship end of it's, that's whatever. You draftsmanship can be taught, it can be practiced. It's storytelling and knowing how to use your angles, your shots, and your blocking to tell the story that you want to tell and to give off the impression you want to give. I mean, there's shots with Canto where it's down shots and he's tiny and there's no background. That's generally used to, make him feel at moments where he feels isolated, or, if you want to make, if you need it to feel hopeless for him, you make him tiny compared to the larger whatever's in front of him. That goes back to just, visual and, filmmaking language.
Sebastian did something recently. I keep going back because that's the one issues that have come through most recently. He played with perspective of the giants. There's a king and queen who are super huge and intimidating. In the last panel, we see them in. I just realized now this issue hasn't even come out yet. I don't care. I'm going to say it. His Canto's companion says, "I'm beginning to think that these giants aren't as fearsome as they want us to think they are," or something. And the perspective is these giants are in the background and they're just about the same size physically as the characters in the foreground. So we've shifted from huge giant, tiny little Canto to they now actually look like they're about the same size. So it's leveling that playing field.
That's that deceptively simple thing we were talking about.
Yeah,
never
that's
thought
a perfect
of it.
example.
Yeah,
never thought of it. And Sebastian came back and said, "Hey, note on this layout, I wanted to do this." And I was like, "You better do that because that's awesome."
That's so cool. Well, guys, I mean, I could sit here and pick your brain about every individual panel, but I appreciate all the time you've already given. So I guess everybody should go and check out Canto. There's already plenty of stories out there, more coming. And that could be, it's in every comic book store, right? Well, it's in comic book stores.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'll give you the rundown. We've got Canto 1, which is in shops everywhere. Canto 2, the trade, which collects the Hollow Men, and Canto and the Clockwork Fairies comes out next Wednesday. I believe today's Wednesday, right? It comes out next Wednesday, June 9th. Everywhere books are sold. We have Canto and the City of Giants. Issues 1 and 2 are out on shelves now. City of Giants number 3 comes out on June 30th. And then Canto 3, number 1, which is the start of the big new arc that leads up to the final battle. It's called Lionhearted, 6 issues. Issue number 1 is slated for July 18th.
Oh, no, that's Sandy. Wait.
16th?
Oh, no, I know the San Diego date. That was the 28th.
I think it's July 16th, Wednesday, July 16th. So just a couple weeks after City of Giants. And that starts the next big 6-issue arc that will be taking us through to 2022. And then you can watch for hopefully some fun updates on the movie side.
That's awesome. That's a lot of story coming. That's really cool. You guys want to give out your socials or anything? Anywhere else you want to point people?
Sure. I am on Instagram at Art of Drew Zucker. I'm on Twitter at Drew_Zucker. And my website is artofdrewzucker.com, where any original art I've got is up for sale. And a whole bunch of galleries with the original art, with the original black and whites and the color pieces next to each other.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter at David Booher. You can find me on Instagram at David M. Booher. You can find Canto at Canto Comic on Twitter and Instagram for updates. Yeah, and you can go to IDW's website to find links to all of the issues. They're available everywhere. I did want to plug, both Drew and I have new projects also coming out alongside Canto. Drew, I
have The House, which is a World War II haunted house story from Dark Horse. That's going to be a graphic novel that will be out in October and should be up for pre-order now, actually.
Yeah. And I have a new series coming from Dark Horse as well. It's called Killer Queens. We brought together an all LGBTQ creative teams to create a big queer space romp. I like to do my dad joke calling it Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's out from Dark Horse. It's pre-ordered now, out from Dark Horse on August 18th. And I'm very happy to say that yesterday we got featured in the New York Times for Pride Month. Woo! So very excited.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, thanks again, guys. I really do appreciate your time.
Thank you
for having us.
I'd like to thank Dave and Drew one more time for taking time out of their incredibly busy schedules to talk to us about Canto, making comics, getting in animation. The whole thing was fascinating. The whole thing was super inspirational. Check out their book. It's on Comixology. It's in a lot of comic shops. Can't speak to what's local to you, but it's readily available. I'm really enjoying it. I'm looking forward to more. So you don't miss out on more interviews, more new movie coverage. We've got some unboxings coming up, more interviews with comic artists, got some Kickstarter stuff coming up. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow our audience, helps you not miss out on cool stuff. We really appreciate it. Also, make sure you listen to So Wizard Podcast every single week, wherever you get your podcasts. So Wizard Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows. We have another Star Wars talk, where Joey and I talk all things Star Wars and just love the franchise, so you're not going to want to miss out on that, amongst other shows, unique reviews that the core So Wizard crew does. Very cool stuff. Only $1 a month. Check it out. SoWizardPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. We love hearing feedback, so drop something in the comments, leave us something on social media. All of our accounts can be found after the show and in the show notes. And not to jump on the IDW bandwagon too hard, but a friend and I also released an indie comic at the beginning of this year. It's called Social Studies. It's an ongoing series. It's a comedy comic about the high school experience, all the ridiculousness of it, and these kids just kind of trying to find out who they are and make their way in the world. It's written like a sitcom, and then we take all those elements and jam them through the prism of the 90s cartoons that we grew up on. Nicktoons, Recess, Ed, Edd n Eddy, a lot of inspiration from Calvin and Hobbes, all that kind of stuff that we just loved and consumed. We try to get it all on the page for you. Brightly colored pages, fast reads, funny stuff. Check it out at socialstudiescomic.com. Thanks.